Tonight, the chief of Jacksonville Fire Rescue is taking sweeping action after an Action News Jax investigation.
It's a move to provide accountability and answers.
He needs to know that they can trust us and know that we have the most qualified people coming to them in their times of need.
This is in response to our investigation, which exposed questions about how the department promotes first responders. Today, the chief sat down with me to show me how he plans to make sure that all promotions are above board.
We're here for you. Yep. It started with an investigation into this man, then Chief Todd Smith.
We want to talk to you about the National Homeland Security Conference you went to last year.
He was accused of sexually harassing a woman at that conference last year, then submitted an almost $10,000 travel request to go back this summer.
He's not in there. He ran.
He gave us the slip, but was ultimately asked to resign his position as a result of our reporting.
It all started in
That story and the name Todd Smith also led us to the Inspector General's office and this 2016 whistleblower report.
It said Smith, who was an assistant chief at the time, quote, falsified training records in order for a firefighter to be eligible for promotion. It also says that may have been done on more than one occasion. And our investigation found there were 2 other whistleblower reports alleging similar issues, specifically centered around one particular promotional exam in 2017. There was enough in those allegations and the interviews the investigator did for the office to call for a full audit into training records. But our investigation found that never happened. Nothing did for years. And then, 4 years later, with no further action, the Inspector General at the time closed the case. So, quote, an audit of training records was not completed and an investigative report was not generated, leaving lots of unanswered questions.
I feel like if it happened once, there's a possibility it happened somewhere else.
That's when this firefighter came forward, worried he'd been shorted a promotion based on false records. After seeing our stories, he filed a grievance with the union.
For me, it just means like you can't trust the process. It's unfair. And why even put that amount of time and effort into anything if you can't be judged fairly?
And that sentiment is part of what spurred the fire chief into action. The other part, he says, was getting to the bottom of it for his own conscience. In an exclusive sit-down interview with the man in charge, Chief Keith Powers told me he looked into these allegations as soon as they were brought to his attention and made major moves to make sure everything is above board and accurate.
It's concerning when you read those kind of accusations. It concerns me as a leader of this department.
Our reporting took City Hall and the fire department by surprise. Neither, they say, knew about this Inspector General's investigation. That's because no formal report was ever generated.
The very day that I got my eyes on it and got to read it, I started highlighting and then began to internally look at some of the accusations that were made to see if there was some validity to them, because we need to know that.
That's when he launched an audit of each person who took the 2017 promotional exam mentioned in these whistleblower reports. It took 5 people 4 days to complete, but they cross-checked physical certificates with what was in the system to make sure each candidate had what was required.
Everybody was actually eligible for that test, which was a big relief for me.
But Powers says that wasn't enough. He created a committee to make sure no questions linger. It has 2 members of JFRD leadership, 1 person from the city's employee services, and the new Inspector General himself. They're charged with conducting a, quote, detailed and thorough review of the training records and certificates for any promotional test or JFRD personnel mentioned in the OIG report Action News Jax uncovered, including Todd Smith. It will also review the credentials of 5% of JFRD's uniformed personnel using a randomly generated list.
And at the end of this, you'll be able to stand in front of people and say what?
That we either have some deficiencies that we need to fix, or that it validates the same stuff that we've already been finding, that there was no accuracy to the whistleblower's complaint.
But the point is answers.
The point is we have an answer.
And that committee has already started working on this. And the chief estimates it'll probably take a little over a week to complete. But you can count on Action News Jax to let you know what, if anything, they find.
An Action News Jax investigation found a local mayor running for the state legislature with a past littered with accusations of harassment and stalking. I'm Chandler Morgan.
I'm John Bachman. Jamie Watts is currently the mayor of Willaca in Putnam County and has launched a campaign for the area's seat in the Florida House. Action News Jax investigator Emily Turner dug into his past and found some troubling accusations against him.
Than 3 separate women, all his ex-girlfriends or ex-wives, went to law enforcement about safety concerns after the breakup. I found accusations of harassment, even threats of revenge porn. I tracked down Jamie Watts at a campaign event to ask him about those, but our questions remain unanswered.
Hey. He's the mayor of a town just shy of 1,000 people, running to represent nearly 800,000 in the state. But the way he is accused of treating 3 local women raises concern about that.
We want to talk to you about a concerning pattern of behavior in your past.
Okay.
Action News Jax dug through the records. We found a series of accusations and criminal charges that paint a less than squeaky clean picture. In 2011, his now ex-wife filed a report with the Putnam County Sheriff's Office when they were separated, saying, quote, she is scared for her safety and the safety of her children. The warrant that follows charges him with stalking. In 2017, a different woman called the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office saying, quote, he has been threatening her for about a week, making threats to get her fired. The call record goes on to say he contacted the woman's daughter, telling the girl, quote, you should know your mother had an abortion. Then in 2019, a third woman reported harassment, also to the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. In her sworn affidavit, she says, quote, he has failed to stop contacting me despite my best efforts to block him, using multiple different phone numbers. She says he threatened revenge porn, telling her he would, quote, expose pictures on social media and to my parents.
All 3 women ultimately decided not to press charges, but we wanted to get Jamie Watts' side of the story because at some point these women felt so concerned about their own safety, they went to law enforcement for help. We wanted to know why he thinks voters can trust him. So we went to his meet and greet in Keystone Heights with our questions.
When it comes to women, no fewer than 3 individual women have accused you of stalking or harassment.
Okay. I'm happy to sit down and talk to you. I'm getting ready for an event right now. As soon as the event's over, I'm happy to sit down with you.
If we wait in the parking lot, you'll talk to us on camera afterwards?
Let me get my people together, and yes.
Except that's not what happened. A few minutes and 1 phone call later.
It's a private matter. I don't want to get into it right now. I'm happy to do that. I have nothing to hide. I'm happy to come to your studio, or you can meet me, and I'm happy to chat with you.
He asked us to, quote, be fair to him and give him the opportunity to do a sit-down interview for his side of the story. We did, because he promised this.
I will not shadow game or duck you. I'm a transparent person.
Okay, great.
Find that out.
What we actually found out is he lied. After multiple emails to set that interview up, he has yet to respond and is, in fact, ducking us.
I'll come to you. If you want to come to me, you're welcome to come to me, and
Okay.
we'll sit and we'll have a chat. Is that fair enough?
Watts was also arrested and charged with felony dumping after he was discovered emptying the contents of his funeral home's septic tank out on the property. He avoided a conviction by going through pretrial diversion. For local coverage you can count on, Emily Turner, Action News Jax.
One of the reasons, the main reasons we do what we do is to hold government and government officials accountable, to keep watch over taxpayer dollars and to make sure they're spent well. Our Action News Jax investigation reveals how one of the highest paying public jobs in the city comes with big perks and big spending. If you live in Duval County, you pay the CEO of the Jacksonville Transportation Authority. He makes more than $500,000 and travels across the world on JTA's dime. So I pulled the records and found it's happening while the agency's ridership dwindles and promises for promptness fall short. Meet Nat Ford, the CEO of the city's Transportation Authority. He's in charge of buses, the ever unpopular Skyway, and St. John's River Ferry. But when it comes to doing business, records show the executive rarely, if ever, uses any of them. But he is a frequent flyer. And while Ford jet sets, an Action News Jax investigation found that locals are using public transportation less and less often, too. We pulled the numbers. According to the American Public Transportation Association, ridership is down almost half since the pandemic. And JTA's numbers show the agency sometimes fails to meet its own on-time standards. And while ridership dwindles, Action News Jax found the man in charge is often missing too. We pulled Ford's travel records. Since 2016, Action News Jax Investigates found Ford took 140 trips on the public dollar. He's spent more than $40,000 just on D.C. travel alone. And he doesn't only jet set to domestic locales. He's stamped his passport at least a dozen times, hitting Berlin, Barcelona, and London just this year. All those miles add up to more than $189,000, a bill footed by you, the taxpayer.
I'm not Ford.
We asked Ford for a sit-down interview to talk about his travel. He declined, so we caught up with him at a press conference.
We want to talk to you about your travel. Can you explain why you're out of town so frequently?
Well, I don't know if so frequently is the way to describe it.
But not counting personal vacation or holidays, we found Ford is out of town an average of twice a month for multiple days each time. Records show most of the travel is to conferences, the rest somehow transit related. Even a JTA spokesperson says the Conference of Mayors or the sister city's delegation to Johannesburg, South Africa.
I'm a high energy individual, so in addition to the travel and I'd say the national associations I'm leading, I'm sitting at the table with those decision makers and those influencers that are making policy decisions around transportation.
And we found he is being paid well to do that. In addition to his $189,000 travel tab, Ford makes almost $460,000 a year. That's more than President Joe Biden makes, and significantly more than the top transportation executives in Chicago and New York City make, two of the largest public transit systems in the U.S. And that doesn't even include his upcoming yearly bonus of almost $92,000, or his annual cost of living adjustment set to be at least $13,000 on top of that, or his $50,000 a year deferred compensation, or his $1,000 a month allowance for his personal vehicle.
I'm doing everything within my power, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to support the citizens in this community, and that record is pretty clear and evident.
Except with ridership down, questionable on-time rates, and more than generous spending on executive travel, we still had questions, and Ford didn't want to answer them.
The Emerald Trail Community Service.
This is important.
I understand, but I think I've got other
But ridership is down. Ridership has not recovered from the pandemic.
Ford, I'm going to take additional questions if you have to me. We have to let these other gentlemen have their time. We don't have a limited amount of time.
And that is where our interview ended.
I've been digging into JTA since June, but over the weekend, the agency came back with data saying that ridership this year is about 12% higher than last year. And that's true. Last year was down almost 47% from pre-pandemic numbers. This year, it's only down 43%. In the meantime, Mr. Ford's contract states that he, quote, shall perform his duties primarily in Jacksonville. But so far this year, he's taken 20 trips out of town. So considering his busy travel schedule, we wanted to know how often he's actually in the office. So last Monday, we requested his badge access history for this year. We're still waiting on that. But coming up next, we'll address Mr. Ford's claim that his travel is to lobby for JTA. So tomorrow at 6 p.m., I'll look into the ethics and the potential redundant spending associated with that.